It's G from the Academy, and you should be able to, if you're watching the visual version of this, I'll put this out in an audio podcast as well, but in the video version, you should be able to see me and my Facebook page. One of my Facebook pages, we will see how long I remain active in this endeavor. Because if you've been following what's been going on for the last 48 hours on the internet, you will have seen the madness of even more people getting removed from even more platforms for even more ridiculously silly reasons. Won't go into them. That's not the point. But we do what we can, where we are with what we have. And so if you want to link up with me, this is one of my Facebook pages where I document life, the universe, everything, the travels and experiences. And let's get on with it. Today, there are two things that I would like to look at, and if I can find my mouse on the screen, there we go. The first story, and I decided to pick stories from my Facebook feed because there are other useful, practical sources of information. There's lots of sites that gather collective news stories. There's lots of other people's pages that I could surf around, although it's getting less and less as Google says you can't report on this, and Facebook says no, we won't have any of that on here. If you're showing the mindless violence of a computer game, it's perfectly okay. Or the lesbian soft porn of Batwoman, that's fine. But you can't share real information. Now, question is, how do we know which information is real? Well, we don't. We have to start with the question. We don't know which information is real. Not only do we not know what is real, people get things wrong sometimes. Originally, reporting was the reporter going out, finding the source, getting the information from the horse's mouth. Now we've got Reuters, AP, and a few other agencies sending stories out worldwide, and that's where this lockstep comes into being, where basically almost everybody in almost every country is fed the same diet of the same information. And in general, it's disempowering information about things that the little people have no control over. It's designed to get you to disengage from the system, and that's the way it is. It's all part of a plan. Now my partner saw my video yesterday, and she said I was slouching in my chair. So I've got to try and not do that. Maybe I should do this standing rather than sitting. I don't know. What's the point? The point is the information. So I've decided to source the information at the moment from my Facebook page, where whenever somebody sends me something of interest or I see something of interest, I just copy it there and have this running stream of news. I'm sure you can find other words for it. But the point I wanted to make is we don't know which information is real and not real. We sort of have to trust our senses over time that we're going to be able to parse through the details of the information. I saw a video. Here's an example. I saw a video a few days ago of a nurse crying about being overworked. And as someone who spent some time doing theatre and drama, it just seemed over dramatic, especially to be creating a piece of social media about that, rather than crying to friends or family or whatever. It seemed to be crying for attention. And although people were posting it, saying, "Oh, isn't this terrible?" It really, there was a red flag waving in my mind. And lo and behold, 2 days later, it comes out that most of the information she presented was false. Not all of it, most of it was false. A lot of the key data was false. Of course, people remember the first piece of information. It's like if somebody tells you they remember the first piece of information more. It's like if somebody tells you that this person you've never met is a bad person. Might be true, might not, but it's still going to influence you heavily when you meet them, because that's the first piece of information you heard about them. It's also why it's important to be as positive as possible through as much of life as it is possible. Now we're in interesting times. A lot of dissent, a lot of discussion, and a lot of conflict. And the conflict is my fear. It's not like I'm scared of conflict, it's that the unnecessary conflicts now, where people have siloed themselves, hunkered down, backed themselves into corners of certain positions, and they'd rather defend where they are than realize there might be another way. Because we're all kind of like that to a certain extent. Our experience dictates what we know, and all of our experiences are different. Therefore, everyone's going to come at the same thing in a slightly different way. But that's the beauty, the variety, the spice of life. Anyway, what I want to present here is I'm going to take some news stories. Now, the crazy thing is that in general, we don't know who writes the stories. In general, there's always an agenda. In general, we have to look for trends, which writers are consistently accurate. And that's where we tell the good magazines and the good newspapers and all the other good literature, because there's consistency there. And you have to have an element of doubt when you don't know the source, or when the source is distant from you. You have to have an element of doubt. I mean, you have to also trust people as well at the same time. That's the contradiction. People want everything to be all black or all white, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's just not. So here's a couple of stories that I want you to think about, because information changes situations, as the infamous Eric Thomas said, and probably other people as well. Let's see if we can cut through the mustard of this story from the Guardian newspaper. I'm going to try to keep things relevant and up to date, but there's also so much media that you can kind of drown. It's like trying to read every page of a book at the same time. It is easy to drown. And also what's interesting at the moment is, everybody's got to put the puzzle pieces together. Everyone's got to join the dots, and it's very interesting that if you check on the right side of the page here, the latest headlines are: UK coronavirus live news. Boris Johnson is critically ill, semi-critically ill in intensive care. Interesting, as I think Boris was not listening to his overmasters very well, not wanting to fully lock down the country. At least it seems that way anyway. And the example of that is that he didn't want sports like football not to not to occur, but he was trumped by the Football Association, who said no football. Because they're all part of a nice global agenda and plan. Right now everything's being strangled, basically. Everything's being bled dry. And they're saying, the great powers that be are saying how far they can push the people. Now everybody knows you can only push people so far. That's where things like, the Berlin Wall had to come down eventually, right? Because there had to be a pressure release, because you can't keep the people down. They resent that. They resent force. We all resent force. So the story is that was my rambling intro. The story is China outraged after Brazilian minister suggests COVID-19 is part of a plan for world domination. Of course, this article is going to make fun of him, because that's the approach the media takes. Question is, what if he's right? What if he's wrong? What if he's right? Let's see how much the story is going to dig into the information and the background and the facts, or whether it's just going to try to assassinate his character, which is what most of these articles do. Beijing demands explanation after highly racist tweet by Abraham Weintraub. I've probably butchered that name. Suggests it's part of a geopolitical plan. Of course it's part of a geopolitical plan. Everything's interconnected. I mean, that should be obvious. A racist tweet. Can a tweet be racist? And does it matter? Does it matter that someone's got an opinion? Does it matter that people try to force people to not have an opinion? We're going to force you to be nice. But it's not nice to force someone to be nice. It's just authoritarian. More insanity. So, the article reads, China has demanded an explanation from Brazil. I'll try to highlight the text here. China has demanded an explanation from Brazil after the far-right government's education minister linked the coronavirus pandemic to Beijing's plan for world domination. In a tweet imitating a Chinese accent. Well, he probably didn't need to do that, but there you go. People imitate people all the time. It's not racist. We've got this one's here, and this one's here, and this one's here. Everything is for sale. Come on, have a look. I will find something for you. You don't like it? We make a bargain. Come on, we make a bargain. Oh, I reduce the price. Look at this. Something for the ladies. Anyway, in the latest incident to strain ties between the two nations, Minister, what's his name, insinuated China was behind the global health crisis. Well, of course, the virus that we are now all in a panic about. Actually, we're not in a panic. It's the media that's creating the panic, and I'll get into that later as well. So China is, in a sense, behind the global health crisis. Yes. Now, we can get into the documents of that later. What do we know about it? We know that the strain of virus was created in an American university. We know it was shipped and exported out to Wuhan. We know that it's genetically engineered. It's been spliced. We know this because of documentation in American medical journals and through the research of Dr. Francis Boyle. And he's a pretty well-renowned, trusted source, who also says that he believes this to be a bioweapon. He calls it a Nazi bioweapon. It's interesting. I mean, it's quite a powerful term. Because it is engineered, and we don't know exactly what the result of this process of engineering is going to be. When people play God, bad things happen. Geopolitically, who will come out stronger from the global crisis, he wrote on Twitter Saturday. Who in Brazil is allied with this infallible plan for world domination? Great, infallible. Yeah. In the original Portuguese, his tweet substituted the letter R with capital L, Brazil, instead of Brazil, for example, in a style commonly used to mock a Chinese accent. Or don't we all mock accents? People mock Scottish accents all the time. Oh, it's just, yeah, it happens all the time. Who cares? Who cares? China's embassy in Brazil condemned Weintraub's, I've probably butchered that name, absurd and despicable tweet. Really? Calling it highly racist, ignoring all the facts as well. The Chinese government expects an official explanation from Brazil because of a tweet. They want a word. They want official explanation because of a letter. A letter. This is a war on language. It's a war on your mind. The row comes as Brazil, like many countries, is hoping to source more medical equipment from China to deal with COVID-19. Really? COVID-19? Oh, you mean the Wuhan virus? Oh no, you can't. That's racist as well. Oh dear. Oh, you mean SARS? Oh no, what do you mean it's SARS? Well, there you go. Do your own research. This minister said in an interview he stood by his tweet. Quite right too. Much better than deleting it. And called on China to do more to help fight the pandemic. If they, China, sell us 1,000 ventilators, I'll get down on my knees in front of the embassy, apologize and say I was an idiot. Well, there you go. There's a man who likes to say what he thinks. Health Minister Luis Enrique Mandetta said last week Brazil was struggling to source ventilators and other health supplies from China, saying some of its orders were cancelled without explanation. Oh, well, you see, there's always more to it than meets the eye, right? And weren't China buying up huge amounts of resources around the world before the pandemic hit? You know, they buy like all the masks in Australia and ship them back to China. You know, just do a search. Go search for it. Go search for it. There you go. Cancelled without explanation. The issue erupted online on Monday. The top trend on Twitter in Brazil was the hashtag trade blockage on China now. Brazil, whose biggest trading partner is China, is the Latin American country hit hardest by the new coronavirus, with nearly 500 deaths and more than 11,000 confirmed cases so far. That's if you can trust the testing kits, which were late, contaminated, and are inaccurate. Sources for that include the World Health Organization, who were the first people to say, don't panic, it's perfectly okay. Thank you very much, World Health Organization. See the history of my tweets for that evidence. Since the pandemic emerged, Brazil-China ties have been strained, notably by a series of tweets by President Jair Bolsonaro's son, Eduardo, a federal lawmaker. He criticized the Chinese dictatorship for its handling of the outbreak in March. Yeah, why not? Why do you not allowed to criticize people? You know, that's the way it goes. Last week he tweeted about the Chinese virus, a phrase that infuriates Beijing because it just reminds them of how much they screwed up. A phrase that infuriates Beijing and the World Health Organization, which has just allowed China onto its panel of, what's his ethical panel? I can't remember what the name of the panel is, but China shouldn't be there. You know, the country that has these mobile vans for abortions and likes to shut down protesters, not to mention what they did with the organs of the Falun Gong, or, you know, what happened in Tibet, and it goes on and on and on and on. The phrase has also been used by President Donald Trump. Yeah, let's group them all together. That prompted China's Consul General in Rio de Janeiro, Li Yang, to ask Eduardo Bolsonaro in an opinion column in a Brazil newspaper, are you really that naive and ignorant? Of course, that's just insulting him even more. There you go. That's the article from The Guardian, written by Is there an author? Oh, no, no, they don't write authors' names anymore because, I don't know, maybe it's all generated by a computer. No, I have no idea. Oh, wait a minute, it just says Agency France Press. Is that like the French news agency? Where's this stuff coming from? It'll just all be written by a computer eventually. It's madness. Now, what's happening here is the great order of things can't get its ducks in a row, and that's causing certain problems, right? Because people are beginning to step out of line, and if you stand up like a nail, you will be knocked down. So, he's not the only one. And if you notice, there's almost, I think I mentioned the other day, there's almost 200 countries in the world, and not all of them are on lockdown. Some of them are functioning normally, and it appears now the data is coming out that these curves were slowing down, the curves of disease were slowing down and in decline before lockdown was introduced. Now, government's going to come out of lockdown saying, look, we saved you with the lockdown, and the people are going to believe it because people are too lazy to do the research, and they're well-trained little animals. And welcome to the sad truth of the world we live in. And contrary opinions will just be deleted or memory hold. But other people are saying similar things, and if I go back to my Facebook page and I go to the activity log and I type in there Belarus, I think it's Belarus. Is it Belarus or Bulgaria? Belarus? Is that going to no, it's not going to come up there. Okay, it's not going to be Belarus. Then it's Bulgaria. Nope. Nope. There was somewhere else in Europe. There was somewhere else in Europe where one of the leaders also stepped out of line. See if there's a history here. Are they all going to, are they all going to be in there? Show new tab with history of pages. Okay. No, that just takes me to Google. Oh, that's not cool. There is something that says show full history. Does that give me, it doesn't give me the pages within, it doesn't give me the pages within Facebook. Okay. Okay. So there are other European leaders who are not on board with this and who are not going to go along with what is it, the mainstream? It's not the mainstream. It's just the power of force, where one person or one organization decides the world must go in this direction, and then everybody kind of follows. And at the moment, it's China, because China was the first country to implement a lockdown, and then it was like, oh look, it's worked, but you know, did it really work? Can we really trust the data? It's really, really hard to know if we can. It's really, really hard to know. So I'm annoyed that I can't find the other article, but that doesn't really matter because it's out there for people who want to find it. I could scroll pedantically through my history and and then read through the stories about what Spain's doing right now. Spain and Italy. Okay, here was the story about, I mentioned actually earlier the story about the nurse. Okay, so the story about the nurse is that CBS, it's a CBS News posts fraudulent video of ICU nurse crying over poor working conditions, and people went for it, right? They absolutely went for it. So There's a whole bunch of, I could recommend something. I think I might do something on this later myself, but I recommend two articles for you. There's a great article from John Rappaport at nomorefakenews.com about how, and I would call him a forensic reporter, and he talks about how COVID is not just one thing, and I want to get into that later as well. That it's not actually just one disease. It's a mutating series of diseases, viruses. I'm not quite sure which term is the right term, but I think you understand what I mean. Also, The Spectator does a study of statistics, which show that it's far from clear that the virus is in any way dangerous. Not to take away from the negative things that have happened recently, because obviously there are people affected, and obviously there's a lot of problems that need to be dealt with, and obviously it's a new situation for a lot of people. And oh look, there we go. Here's the article. I love it when a plan comes together. Right. So I apologize for I have to block Sputnik News because everything that pops up on your desktop is a distraction and affects the way you think. So you should always cancel all of those notifications. That little red dot that tells you there's a message on Facebook screws with the human population much more than anything else in history, I imagine. Anyway, here's an article from Sputnik. Belarus's president warns global elites using COVID-19 crisis to try to reshape world order. So, of course, the Brazilian president was not alone. Now, I haven't read this article, but that doesn't really matter because it's making the point. Let's check it out together. Belarus has been one of the few nations in the Northern Hemisphere to resist introducing nationwide quarantines and other large-scale restrictions in its battle with the new contravirus, instead preferring a targeted response. There you go. And also, if you look at the responses to viruses and pandemics in history, there's absolutely zero evidence that lockdown has any great positive effect. Distance has an effect. Not social distance, distance has an effect. But then viruses jump in the wind, don't they? So, can't do anything about that unless you want to control the weather. So, look at history. Look at history to see the way we're going. Find the patterns in the past. Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko has expressed concerns over how powerful nations and interests may try to use the coronavirus pandemic to reshape the world to their own advantage. Of course, let no crisis go to waste. Of course, let no crisis go to waste. Quote, I once asked the question, is this pandemic this... Did I say contravirus? I keep saying contravirus instead of coronavirus. And it's because it is. It's contrary to everything that's logical. It just is. I once asked the question, is this pandemic, this coronavirus, a man-made phenomenon? Of course, it is man-made. It's already been proved by scientists. Go and do the research. It's not natural. I don't know the answer yet, but I have my suspicions. Are politicians and others using this situation for their own purposes? You and I both know the answer to that question. You already see how it is used today. Doesn't it seem to you that the powerful forces of this world would like to remake the world without a war? Though this so-called corona psychosis, wow, there's a great term, corona psychosis, or infodemic. Wow, what a term, infodemic. Many people are asking what will happen after the pandemic, Lukashenko said, speaking to Mir. Space, is that Space TV? In an interview airing Friday, Lukashenko has insisted that Belarus's economy continue to operate as normal, even if this means risks to his political popularity, saying he could imagine what would happen to the country after the pandemic is over if it were to shut down. Yeah, good man, good man. There won't be anything bloody left, will there? Small, medium-sized businesses, small businesses will be wiped out. Medium-sized businesses will be scooped up, and big businesses will be laughing. Right. What will happen to us? He asks. Other countries will survive. Russia has its oil and gas, which the world, including China, needs. And China is a huge, powerful economy. America has the dollar, or the printing press. They've thrown in $2 trillion and plan to spend $2 trillion more. My friend UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, a sincere man, has proposed printing money. Worth 10% printing money. That's the solution. Print money, give everybody some. Yay, but there'll be no products to buy because everyone's been shut down. You spanners. Even as things are, the global dollar is gradually losing its value, and here it will just drop, giving rise to inflation, of course, because, you know, it's a sugar fix, right? Where we will come out of this with our Belarusian ruble, we know. Ruble. It's a currency. I know. The whole thing's a rumble, really. Moreover, who will receive these 20 trillion? Oh yeah. Print money, give it to your friends. Print money, give it to your friends. Where will this money end up? Will it not be a case of the rich getting richer while the poor get poorer? I think it will. We've been pushed to shut down and sit and eat through all the small reserves we have, even in Russia. It cannot be said that its currency reserves are so large. And then, having printed out this 10% of global GDP, those who stay on their feet will come to us and say, here's a little for you. But now you will do what we say. He's right. That's how the world can be reshaped, he warned. Wow. The president noted that he has no doubt that the world will be a different place when the pandemic ends. His main concern now is what place Belarus will have in the new world. Everything is new, my friends. It's a new world. A whole new world, a whole fantastic point of view. No one to tell us no or where to go. Are those the words? Da-da-da, what to do. Belarus has 351 confirmed cases of COVID-19 infection to date, as well as 4 fatalities. You probably have more deaths from accidents in the home. Also, you want to check the average age of death, because in Lombardy, where it started in Italy, it was somewhere between 70 to 80 years old. Old people have, the more susceptibility, lower immune systems. Also, other things were going on in Lombardy as well. The socioeconomic climate was pretty bad, and there's also some interesting stories about doctors using experimental techniques there as well. Beware of the solutions they offer you, especially if they're just taking them off the shelf. Belarus has 351 confirmed. Did I just read that? Yes, 4 fatalities. The country has rejected broad coercive restrictions to fighting the virus. Broad coercive restrictions. That's as forced social distancing, right? Forced self-isolation. Forced self-isolation. Oxymoronic terminology. The terminology is toxicology. Preferring a strategy of pinpoint measures, including quarantine for people with the virus and testing anyone coming into contact with them. Makes some kind of sense. Belarus's factories and farms remain open. Good on you. As do educational institutions, well done, shops, restaurants and other public amenities. And the country has not closed its borders with its Russian neighbor. Smarts. Different kinds of smarts, right? Different kinds of smarts. So, think about it, right? Here we are. We've been presented with a wonderful solution to everything. Or we're going to be presented with a wonderful solution to everything. And when they pull this magic formula out of Bill Gates's pocket or the Rothschild's pocket or some other mad scientist's pocket or Jeff Bezos's pocket, you have a right to say no. Because you're not free unless you're able to walk away unharmed and unscathed. That's the point. That's the point. Link up, comment, tune in, share, do whatever. Send me some stuff. Let me wade through it and see what I can pick out. Of course, my opinions are defined by my experience. Your opinions might be different. That's kind of cool. Let's talk. Let's communicate. Let's converse. That's what I want to say right now. Wherever you are, stay safe, people. Stay safe.